a moment ago over on my Instagram live, you will know why we are in a car park. We are in a car park this morning, broadcasting live because yet again Thameslink, and I know so many of you rage about Thameslink.
Is it specifically Thameslink more than anyone
Well,
else?
that's all that I know about because
Yeah.
that's what I go on. But loads of people always comment whenever I say anything about Thameslink. So, as you know, our youngest is doing her GCSEs at the moment. To all you GCSE parents, and so we get up really early, 5:45, to check to see if all trains are cancelled because she goes to school miles away, and sure enough, cancelled. Engineering works were not finished at the weekend. How often does this happen on a Monday?
Yeah, and just to stress, she goes to school on the opposite side of London, which is a vast metropolis for anyone who's a smart ass and says, "Oh, why don't you just get a tube?"
Yeah, so you know, it's a state school, but it's an academy school, so it's a long, long way away. And if we hadn't been able, if we are so
welcome
lucky.
If you're listening on podcast, by the way, we are in a car. You're probably listening to us in a car, probably in traffic.
So you know, we lucky for her that we were both at home this morning, and we have driven her up here. All those parents that weren't able to do that today, whose kids had to travel by Thames, big bloody hug, because as we know, you get disqualified if you're late. So poor child, she nearly went into a major panic attack, didn't she?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Morning, happy Bernie.
All weekend in the heat, can you imagine? And then you just might not get there.
It's ridiculous.
So we are broadcasting live from a car park, and it's all very lovely.
The irony is, you're probably going to get, I was saying to Nads, the best signal ever because we're on 5G in a car park. So this is probably going to be infinitely better than our Wi-Fi. Thank you for all of your lovely comments about the Curly Cooks, which again, if you're listening on podcast, is a show we do every Saturday morning. There's obviously an issue, or there has been an issue with the quality of the Wi-Fi and broadband with anything that has a lot of camera movement. So, you know, obviously, like the lives that we do sat down are quite reliable and quite sort of, you know. So apologies for that. We are constantly trying to resolve it.
Thank you for all your brilliant comments. And my mum did love her paella. It was total fucking chaos, but we got there in the end with the most gorgeous vegan and seafood paella. So if you missed it, take a look at the Curly Cooks. So thank you. Still so many nice messages about the content this weekend in the members area as well. Beautiful No Name Sunday show.
Really nice. Yeah,
so
really nice.
And thank you. We really appreciate you appreciating us. Oh my God, we're starting to sound fucking American now. Let's move on.
And I think is it a happy birthday for Fiona? I seem to remember. Is it happy birthday, Fiona?
No, it was Clodagh's birthday yesterday.
Oh, was it? No, no, it was Clodagh's and Fiona's.
Yeah, but Clodagh's as well. So we're going to sing to you at the end, both of you.
Happy birthday to Clodagh and Fiona.
We will sing you each a happy birthday. Clodagh, you every day you send such lovely comments. You're such a sweet, kind person. So I hope you had a lovely day. Right, so news. First of all, can I just say, just the image of Prince Andrew hanging onto the banister.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that. Is he squatting? Is that officially squatting?
Well, I think we can play with that. I like the image of him squatting. He doesn't want to leave wherever it is, whatever lodge it is he's in, for these roof works.
Because they were doing the roof works. Yeah.
Because he's frightened about being back in.
As soon as he's gone, it's just weird to think of King Charles, I suppose, standing there going, "Is he out?
Yeah.
Is he out?
Oh, for God's sake, tell me when he's gone.
Change the locks."
And just because Mommy Dearest isn't there anymore, he is now a little bit more vulnerable. Yeah. Wonder what that feels like.
Just like a quick sidebar. I don't want to raise the incredibly poisonous viper's nest of Schofield, but it was interesting, wasn't it, that Fergie came out in support of Philip Schofield too. It was just an intriguing thought because she's quite supportive, isn't she, of Prince Andrew? The image of him squatting, Gigi, that's not pleasant, is it?
No, but I just like the idea that he's like had to come down from the landing.
I mean, squatting as in,
And then they've got him down to the final step. And now, when I was growing up, there was always coats and scarves hanging on the bottom banister.
You had banisters.
And I can just imagine, well, it was a very modest house, but there was a banister, yeah.
We didn't have a banister.
Oh, don't be so bloody
It's in
stupid.
a basement flat. We didn't have a
Oh, right.
banister.
Well, if you didn't have stairs, you didn't have a banister.
Yeah,
You
but
didn't have
I
stairs.
literally didn't have a banister.
Oh, God, I lived in a hole.
No. I wasn't saying it like that. I was just thinking,
Oh,
I
I didn't have a banister. And I could just imagine him hanging onto the scarf with the banister as they're pulling him out.
Yeah.
I didn't realise his daughter lives there too.
Yeah.
Lives with Granddad.
I don't know. Hi, Stacey. Sending you lots of love.
Sending you lots of love.
Aircon. If I don't have the aircon off, we will suffocate. So I'm afraid you're gonna have to. I see. Is it coming through there?
Can you hear it? Is it annoying?
Yeah.
Let's turn it off for a bit. It's
Okay,
very
we'll turn it
hot
off
in
for a
there.
bit. We have piles of coats on our banisters. No,
Exactly.
but also the other weird thing about banisters is, of course, my grandparents from the age of about 8 lived in a what's it called, a bungalow. So they didn't have banisters either. So it wasn't about an impoverished childhood. It was like literally thinking,
It's all right
oh,
for
I don't have stories around banisters.
It's all right for you. You had banisters. We never had a banister.
Never had a banister. Where are you parked? I've got a flask, says Edward Bedington.
Oh, bless
Sorry,
you.
I literally can't cope with that. We're going to have some kind of aircon.
Can we turn that one off there?
No. Sorry, guys. You're going to have to. Don't turn. No, I can't. I can't hear. Don't turn it off. Can't. Oh yeah, I can't hear it. Okay, cool. Who's that? Good morning. Emma does life. Good morning, everyone. Mark. I thought those were. Hope your daughter's okay. And her exam. Good luck. Oh, thank you very much. Hi, Zoe Agnew. Hope you're well, sweetie. So the big story today, was this sort of what felt like an evolving story. Well, what was most evolving about this was less whether the story was evolving, but the shrieks and oohs and ahs coming from you over your cappuccino this morning, as you were like, God, this story is twisting and turning and turning and twisting. What story is that?
Are you talking about Britney?
Yeah.
Well,
Britney
I think
Spears.
it's a very serious story.
It is a very serious story.
Because I feel.
But it's clouded in a
really feel for Britney. I think there are so many twists and turns. So the first thing was last night. The article came out, didn't it, about on the Mail, about again accusations from her family, Kevin Federline and her sons, saying that they believed she was on meth. And Kevin Federline had said that his sons were terrified, and various things like they'd seen a drug dealer come to the house.
Well, she'd had something delivered that she
thought they thought was drugs, that they woke up one night and she was there with a kitchen knife. So that was the first article. And then about an hour ago, something came through, didn't it? With Kevin Federline had made a statement to TMZ. What's the equivalent of TMZ here?
No, it's becoming the Daily Mail.
Oh, it's like the Daily Mail. It's a very confusing sort of article, wasn't it? Because Kevin Federline was basically saying that he felt very let down by these journalists, that he'd allowed them into his home.
Let's name them, because everyone seems to be naming them like we should know who the fuck Daphne Barak is.
Well, it's interesting because a friend of mine who's a journalist just said that she's actually calls herself a filmmaker. So he then goes on to talk about these two journalists that they had allowed into the home, and they had shared some very painful thoughts and feelings. He hasn't directly said that he hasn't said the things that are said in this article, has he? But as you said, it feels like running scared because he's had this.
Well, he's had a massive legal letter thrown. They've had, the legal team for Britney have obviously tried to rubbish the story. The suggestion that could she be on meth? Could she be taking meth? Could she be on drugs?
Manipulation, exploitation of children.
And I think what's happened is a legal letter, a cease and desist or whatever, probably has been sent out. And it seems like Federline has kind of, rapidly kind of backpedaled. But
he talks about things like, so it feels, we don't know, that these journalists were going to be involved, especially now in a filmmaker, in an intervention. And Kevin Federline says we had a safe house. Well, this is in the article, but he's not disputing anything particular. That a safe house had been organised for an intervention, and then they got let down by
Well, hang on, the interventionist didn't turn up.
or something like that. Anyway,
you're an
all
interventionist,
very
that's
dodgy, all very weird sounding. And
I
was just really looking at this from 3 different perspectives, actually. First, Mark has been, we hate this terminology, absent father with his first 2 children. We've experienced what that's like. You know, it's very difficult when you only have your children for a certain amount of time. All sorts of things can happen in that time. Then you don't see them for 3 weeks, and all those natural ways that.
Yeah, no. And what I thought was really interesting about what you were saying in relationship to that was that if you've got access to your child, like Britney has infrequently, if at all, and the one time you see your child, you're not in a great place, you're putting on a front and you're getting through stuff. But the sense of you from that child is just that one day for, say, 3 weeks or a month or 2 weeks. If you think then across a year they're only going to see you 26 times for those weekends, and say a third of those times, you know, various things are happening in your life, then it can be quite easily. So Silvio Berlusconi's just died.
Some great news.
Former Italian Prime Minister. Then that can become a portrait of you, not only for the children, which is one thing and slightly more problematic but more nuanced, because of course it's your relationship with those children, but it can also become really potent ammunition for the parent that's looking after the children.
So and of course we don't know anything what's actually going on in these people's lives, but I was just looking at it from the perspective of many people's lives that we do know, and I think that's always really it really upsets me, that, because you know, like we say, we hate the terminology absent parent, because just think of that word, absent, you know, when often the other parent is desperate to see their children. So on that, first of all, then I was just imagining what it must be like for Britney to read in this article, we had a safe house arranged. A safe house with people that continuously say the most dreadful things about her in the press, with people, because the father is also involved in this article, with a father that I call, you know, this conservatorship I liken to a modern day Victorian mental institute where women could be just taken away and locked away and have all their rights and freedoms taken away. Let's not forget, conservatorship is really only meant for people like with Alzheimer's, isn't it? People that have lost all ability to look after themselves. And
just clarifying, people asking, Kevin
Federline,
Federline is her ex-partner.
You know, and the other thing is, this Kevin Federline takes $40,000 a month from her and has for years.
What, child maintenance?
As child maintenance. Right. And you know, her statement back today, I think, was just heartbreaking.
Good Chip Lollipop makes a really good point, though. A lot of women do lose their minds as well when they. We're not suggesting for a minute that she's lost her mind, by the way. Lose their minds when they are absent from their children, when they're separated from their children. I would also add to that. So do a lot of dads. So do a lot of men. I think that the thing that troubles me about this story is obviously, you know, the conservatorship, absolutely right. It's an archaic, arcane, inexact, inappropriate sort of thing that seemed to benefit all those people who were around her father, you know, family, all that kind of stuff, financially, and, you know, the question marks. I worry that the tragedy around the Britney Spears story is that there's a bit of truth in all angles. That she is incredibly vulnerable, that she does struggle continually with her mental health. I'm not suggesting, none of us will ever know unless it becomes overtly obvious whether she's actually taking any drugs or is involved in anything like that, you know. And she, you know, and she was, you know, so I think there will be an element of she possibly is struggling with her mental health, and you know, these guys have made up a story. And are now trying to sort of dial it back in.
But hang on a minute, right? If you were having a really bad bipolar low, again, we don't know. To me, she looks like she's having a ball, Britney. I don't know, but I'm saying, if we just bring this out of celebrity, right? And say you were having a really bad bipolar low, and some other people that we cannot stand, right, who have made our lives a misery, goes to the press and says something about you, when you have a perfectly loving wife who is watching that, Why should Britney be thought of any differently?
No.
She's got a husband.
Yeah.
She's got a
No, I agree.
it's like completely dismissing.
No, I'm not talking about whether they should or shouldn't have done
No,
that.
no, but I'm just saying, if we just bring it to our own realities, it's so outrageous that they step in. These
Zoe
people
says there's something very strange about her current husband.
Well,
Lots of videos with him.
but
I think one of the
we
things that Nadia said, which I thought was really interesting over coffee earlier, was, in a sense, regardless of even if she were taking meth, this is as long as she's not hurting anyone. Well, the argument is she hurting her kids? You know,
But she's not allowed to see her
well,
kids.
she's not allowed to see her kids. So she's could she be self-imploding? Possibly. Who are we to know?
But I just don't think it's up to them, because they've brutalised her before. I just don't think
the story. They've said what they think. They believe it's true, and now they're backpedaling like mad.
And I think for her, I was just imagining reading, we had a safe house organised. Can you believe how scary that would be for somebody that's been put in a conservatory? I can't say that word. I always want to say conservatory. You know, for the years that she was, and just controlled to the level that she was. She must be terrified. She must be thinking, "Oh my God, am I going to be taken off and just like injected?"
I mean, I would go so far as to say that her career trajectory and the success she had at such a young age is inherently challenging and damaging to mental health as well. I mean, this woman has gone through an enormous amount of stress.
She says she's been bullied all through her life by the press, and I absolutely agree. And when you watch some of the better made documentaries around her, and you just see the way people spoke to her in interviews, oh my God, so disgusting, so demeaning. And actually, of all those interviews that we watched in that last Good documentary, you see sweetness, you see vulnerability, you see honesty. A friend of mine, who's a journalist out in America, said she is truly a star that is traumatized by fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Traumatized by it. Yeah. And yet still now, these people are talking to the press. I mean, read the article yourself. We found it quite difficult to dismantle, but it almost sounded like the Mail and the Sun were going to be in on the intervention, filming it. I mean, we don't know that, and covering ourselves. But he said it seems like that was what Kevin was hinting at, wasn't he? He said he couldn't say anything, but bloody hell.
It's incredibly sad. It's incredibly. But it's interesting. Someone just said there that Federline, whatever his name is brainwashing his kids. I think something that happens in a lot of these kind of split homes, and this is kind of off the kind of celebrity thing for a bit. Yeah, it's very easy for the sort of, I hate to use the word, but the primary carer, let's call them that, the primary caring parent. It's very easy for them, not even through saying anything negative, but through saying nothing positive, they can manipulate the sense of the children's idea of Britney. So, you don't have to, and so it's very easy for the primary carer to go, I've never said anything negative. I've never said or done anything negative. But if you say absolutely nothing positive, that speaks volumes. And I think, if I can say this, that for me goes to the very heart of most of the distress in broken homes, is this inability of the non-primary carer or absent parent to be able to control, or not even control, but influence the narrative that evolves around themselves in the minds of their kids. And I think this is a kind of potentially an extreme example of that. I mean, he even felt like he was throwing his own kids under the bus by saying it was them who said it, not me.
If I were her and I was going through this, I think this would drive me to the absolute edge. Hearing this, my kids coming and saying this stuff, I mean, it's just horrendous. For you to now be in this situation where your children are talking through the press as well, is just, when you think of everything she's gone through her life, and again, to bring it back to our worlds and out of celebrity, there is a lot in this story that people will identify with. There's a lot of prejudice again about mental health. The way she's written about with this skewed, like, all the time, everything she's done since she's come out of that conservatorship has had this sort of very nasty undertone in the press to, you know, bonkers women basically. And exactly. So I just,
exactly
upset me. I really feel for her and so many other people that are treated like this, never forgiven for having any kind of mental health challenge.
Absolutely. The other story today, obviously, well, it was a story over the weekend, was the Colombian miracle story. This is just ludicrous, isn't it?
We are
teenagers surviving teenagers and a 1-year-old and toddlers surviving in the Colombian jungle after their plane crashed.
13-year-old, 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and a 1-year-old survived for a month in the Amazonian jungle. I mean, it's just the most extraordinary
story. Absolutely.
Well, heartwarming and heartbreaking. The fact that everybody died on this plane, but their mother, she was alive for 4 days. And you said you'd read somewhere that she'd begged them to leave.
Well, apparently. Well, I mean, this has been unconfirmed, but there were reports that she was alive for 4 days and that she encouraged them to leave the plane and to head off to find help, to be rescued and what have you. This has been reported by, I think the father has said, having spoken to one of the kids. And they survived by hiding and existing and living in the insides of tree trunks.
So their grandmother, who looked after them a lot, was, I think, the head of this indigenous tribe, and she taught them all these survival hacks, if you like. And also, the 13-year-old used to often look after the children when her mum went to work.
Lucky a panther didn't get them. Panthers, all sorts of
snakes. They had a few bites. Obviously, they were dehydrated. They were very, very thin. And just totally extraordinary.
And they survived on they had the 13-year-old. They used hair bands to create kind of like little kind of barriers and little kind of nests in the jungle, which is just phenomenal. And at times they were something like, weren't they just like 200 yards or 200 meters away?
At one point they had 200 out looking, didn't they? And they think that they may have been as close as 100 meters at some points, but because of the storms, the vegetation just being so dense, they couldn't get to them. So imagine how terrifying that would be. I don't like putting the milk bottles out. It gives me a shudder. I remember when I was a kid, just opening the door and putting the milk. My mum used to say, "Put the milk bottles out. Put the milk bottles out." I'd be so terrified of the dark and the night. But also,
there is that thing of how would kids cope with.
But I love this moment when they were found across all these radios. You could just hear miracle, 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 miracle. That's what they said over and out. Miracle, miracle. It just made me cry when I read that this morning. It's just
quite astonishing.
I mean, God knows what's ahead of them.
It reminds me of that. Do you remember the Thai cave? If you haven't seen that film, do check out the film. It was quite an astonishing story, and of course, tragically, the captain of the team that was in the original story has recently passed away, didn't he?
But
that story of survival, these stories, they're just.
What is that famous Winnie the Pooh quote?
Which one, babe?
You're smarter than you know, stronger than you think. We laugh in our family because we always try and quote it, but we can never remember it. If anyone knows that quote. And this is that we have no idea the strengths that we possess deep down in us. I mean, honestly, I would have lasted a day. I know that I would not have been able to do anything with a headband or anything, but these children are extraordinary. But it's what happens to them next as well now, isn't it? Because will they be expected now to be blooming extraordinary all the time? Imagine.
Well, the photos of them, they just look so tiny. These photos of them so tiny.
I mean, the 1-year-old. What did the 1-year-old eat?
There's an astonishing photograph online where you can see, like when a baby's born and you sort of see its little hands like that. It's like that. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think.
Thank you, Zoe. Always can rely on Zoe for Winnie the Pooh quote. And what's Kiki's favourite one from?
I don't know.
Panda.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a great one.
I can't remember what it is.
What's the one from Kung Fu Panda that sounds like it's from Gandhi, but it's not. It's from Kung Fu Panda.
In fact, most of the great ones are from cartoons, aren't they?
Yesterday is the day, tomorrow is the present.
And the present is the gift. Yes. Is that right? something like that. Today is a gift, you're a thing. Anyway, so the final thing I thought we'd do is there was a piece on Radio 4 this morning as we were driving across about conspiracy theories. And I just wanted to know, have you ever been drawn to a conspiracy theory? Are there conspiracy theories that you can go, that you kind of think, you know what, I wonder about that. I'll lead by example here. For me, I have my doubts increasingly over the years about the moon landing.
Oh my God, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, and there seems to be so much, but that's partly because you feel there are other aspects to the story that are intriguing, like Stanley Kubrick made many cryptic comments about how he couldn't talk about this, and about how ex-astronauts who struggled with their mental health and also with drink and stuff like that, potentially as a consequence of.
But every time I hear that part of the story, I thought, right, so if you've got an ex-astronaut that didn't really go to the moon and he's struggling with his mental health and he's drinking, he's going to tell someone.
That's true. It would slip out. Or they've got mental health problems and they're drinking because they know that if they can't.
Yeah, but when you're drunk, you say things that you mustn't.
True. And mind you, social media wasn't around.
But I think the thing is, when like, I know people that are constantly looking at constipation
theories,
and then and from that brilliant film, The Social Dilemma.
Yes.
Where it showed us exactly what happens when you go to one conspiracy theory and how the algorithm picks up, and then you're fed more and more and more until you're in this echo chamber of crazy beliefs. But I think the thing is, whenever I've been drawn to a conspiracy theory, I have no idea it's a conspiracy theory. And then all it will take is someone to say, well, you know, that's a conspiracy theory. And I'd like drop it like a hot potato because I'm scared of it.
I find the thing I get frustrated about
don't fall down the rabbit hole.
I think there are conspiracy theories that I think are batshit crazy and ridiculous and weird, but it's always different, different strokes for different folks, for different people. And what I get frustrated by is like when people use the term conspiracy theory as a way to close down any kind of conversation.
For instance, it's a little bit about the vaccinations.
Precisely what I was about to say. Vaccinations. So if you question the vaccinations, not whether their efficacy or anything like that, but you want to know some more details, you want to know some facts, you want to know whether, we want to hear about the bad as well as the good. You're marked as some kind of conspiracy theorist if you're not 100% going, yay!
I think that's the best recent example we could possibly have. Because, as you know, we both were vaccinated, and now there's so much out there that's so interesting that in other countries they're completely allowed to talk about on the news, but here we are still not, and here we are still banned. John Campbell, a couple of times, who many of us here really respect, has had films taken down. When these are things that are on stories that are completely science-backed, peer-reviewed, and that is the abuse of the conspiracy theory.
Exactly. I mean, I think what makes a really tricky conspiracy theory, or a compelling one for me, is one within which there's some kind of truth baked into it, or potential truth baked into it, or there's enough ambiguity, and also there's no potential to be really disrespectful to people. So I just went through in Teen Vogue, that really reputable, and highly analytical.
What made you go to there for your source?
Because it was the one that had the most recent list of the most compelling conspiracy theories, and I also thought because it's called Teen Vogue, it would be being kind of responsible towards its younger readership.
There's some really good articles.
Yeah, well, I thought it's going to have a duty of care responsibility. The top one that they mentioned, which again, I go back to this idea that a conspiracy theory, that why promote one if it's insulting and damaging and professes hate and everything, is a denial of what happened in World War II. I don't even want to use the word. So that's number one, suggesting that World War II and most of the atrocities within it didn't happen. That's one conspiracy theory which we can all take with a great big ball and go knock it into the long grass. That's the top one. The CIA had a hand in JFK's assassination. You know what? I mean, there wouldn't have been all these movies made if there weren't really compelling question marks around all of that. So it's like Marilyn Monroe's death. To what extent were, people hiding in the shadows when it came to that? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's number two. Number three, the moon landing was faked. Number four, Princess Diana's death was no accident.
I don't believe that's. I don't believe that.
I think it's unfortunately what it was.
I think it was a driver who was drunk.
Right.
He was over the limit. We
Yeah.
know that, fact. She didn't have a seatbelt on, fact. You know, those two things alone are extremely dangerous, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then he was speeding.
Yeah.
And I think that the PAPs and the hounding and the stress involved in driving away from people chasing it, I think, why would, you know, what? That's what happened.
Exactly.
Have you ever had any conspiracy theory beliefs around it?
No, I haven't. No, I don't believe the authorities or anything. I mean, I think again, more often than not, sometimes these kind of fictional little routes to go down are more about people wanting to think that there are more kind of connections between disparate things, and that there's a more malevolent thinking going on than there necessarily is.
I think also
sometimes it doesn't happen though.
I think sometimes people don't want to believe that life can be snatched away from you in a moment because of a few sliding door moments. You know, you got in a car with a driver who was drunk, didn't put the seatbelt on, didn't, you know, that's sometimes more unbearable, the thought of that, isn't it?
But you see, like people say, why did it take them so long to get to the hospital? There are always so many microscopic elements of these things that no one will be able to answer. And I think so long as you have an inability to answer one small aspect, I do think there are some people who, it's like you can think something that's a conspiracy theory, and then presumably if you're a kind of normal human being and you had some proof given to you that wasn't the case, you would settle down and go, all right, I was wrong. But it strikes me that many conspiracy theorists don't want to be even told that it might not be the case.
But the thing is with it is you'd have to have so many people involved and keeping the secret, even to delay getting her to the hospital. Imagine how many people would have to be involved and how the planning that would take ahead of time. Yeah.
9/11 was an inside job. That's another big one. Mass shootings like Sandy Hook were false flags. I never got my head around that one.
No.
This is like post-truth madness.
Yeah.
Top Democrats behind a child sex ring. Again, you know.
Don't know.
Just don't know. The Earth is actually flat. Well, I do like this one because a really leading, cutting edge, no pun intended, flat earther went out to prove that the Earth was flat, and by his own technology discovered it was round.
Oh, really? What?
Spent £25,000 to discover that he was wrong.
So what did he say?
Well, that's what I quite liked about him. He said it's round, so he no longer believes that. Here we go. COVID-19 is a form of population control. Area 51 is home to lots of aliens and government secrets. You believe that? Well, I don't necessarily think about area. I do think it's income. I think governments have no vested interest in telling us the truth, for sure.
No, but you do believe that there are UFOs and there are.
Of course there are. I mean, I think there absolutely are.
ETs.
Yeah, I mean, they said even last week, though everyone was trying to say NASA have said there's no such thing. They said actually 8 to 10% of everything that they've looked at they couldn't answer, including a small orb flying across the Middle East. If you haven't seen it, check it online. It's bloody strange. So yeah, I choose to believe that. But again, with that one, for me, I go with it because it's kind of fictionally quite exciting.
Yeah.
And then number 11, for some reason, there's a hidden chamber filled with government secrets behind Mount Rushmore, which of course is the mountainside with all the faces of former US presidents. I couldn't care less if that was true or not. I mean, you know, it'd be quite a neat place to keep stuff.
Yeah, really, better than in the toilet.
Yeah, and
which is where Trump's been hiding all his papers.
Yeah, that is very true. Good point. Yeah, much safer. Maybe that's where he's stashed them all. Oh, well, there you go, guys. Well, share below after this is uploaded your favourite or your most corrosive conspiracy theories. And as we said, Fiona and Clodagh, happy birthday.
Right, we're going to sing them. Hang on, who we sing to first?
Clodagh first.
Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Clodagh. Happy birthday to you.
And happy birthday to Fiona.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Fiona. Happy birthday to you. Well, that was very nicely done.
Nicely done.
With no bad behaviour from you.
I know, and also nice reception as well.
Wow, this is
everyone's
good.
saying it's clearer than normal, so we're going to have to come to this strange car park.
Maybe we'll have to come here and do curly cooks of Croydon in this flaming car.
We could film it in the car park. Anyway, guys, have a lovely day, and we'll see you later.